Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Ms. Fareed, first of all, thank you so much for being with us today. Just very briefly, if you could, just because I think we should be clear about this. You fled Herat shortly before the Taliban took the city. When they took the city, they came looking for you and your family. What would they have done had you not fled and had they found you?
They would have killed me.
They would have killed you.
Yeah.
Mr. Jocelyn, you made a very interesting point, if I understood it correctly, in your written testimony. I think it's fair to say that you suggested that the distinction between the Taliban and the Haqqani network is really a Western construct. It's not very meaningful to these people. They are so completely intertwined that it's a meaningless distinction. Do I have that right?
That's absolutely correct, Senator.
So money going to the Taliban is the same thing as money going to a notorious terrorist network because they are one and the same.
Correct. The Haqqanis have a controlling interest in the Taliban.
Right. So Mr. Smith made a point that I think is very, very interesting and an important one. One of the things I worry about extending licenses of all kinds to all kinds of groups to conduct all kinds of activities sounds to me like it's likely to include funding, and money is inherently fungible. I worry that it gets in the hands of the Taliban one way or another. But goods, humanitarian goods, food, medicine, basic human needs, those are harder to convert into things like weapons and terrorist activity. So to get them there, I assume, entails significant logistical challenges, not to mention security challenges. My question for, really for each of you is, should the United States be attempting to create or encourage, facilitate some kind of international peacekeeping ability to provide security for humanitarian corridors to deliver life-saving goods? Does that make sense? Mr. Jocelyn, and then Ms. Fareed and Mr. Smith.
All I could say is I would bet a large sum of money the Taliban would not allow that. They
Yeah.
are an authoritarian regime, as I said, and they're going to control the show.
Right. Ms. Fareed?
I think beside of having a peacekeeping coalition, United States needs to partner with a regional player, a regional actor near to Afghanistan. So there will be a base of humanitarian assistance near Afghanistan where NGOs can operate, where NGOs can have a staff that can collect wages there. I think that also is very important, that this corridor has to have a base around Afghanistan in countries like Tajikistan. So we have to have partners with the United States around Afghanistan that can facilitate this corridor. And also, this banking system should not operate inside of Afghanistan because the head of central bank of Taliban is a terrorist. And any money that goes through Western Union, any other procedure, they have hand, they can block, they can do anything with that money.
Mr. Smith?
Ranking Member Toomey, I think to the extent the establishment of a channel for physical goods is possible, leaving aside what Mr. Jocelyn thinks would likely happen, I think it's critical. Whether or not the U.S. should do it on its own is a different story. I do think that multilateralization of these efforts, especially through regional partners, as Ms. Fareed suggests, I think is really the way forward. And of course, leveraging truly multilateral components, be it the World Bank, be it the UN, UNDP, and others. So yes, I think that I agree with you. I think that the opening the spigots for funds is much, much more dangerous than opening the spigot for goods, food, and other sorts of services that are not so easily fungible.
But what about Mr. Jocelyn's point that it's unlikely that the Taliban would tolerate any foreign force, even one that doesn't have a history of antagonism, for instance? Is that a serious obstacle?
I think it could be a serious obstacle for sure. And I don't think we need to recognize the Taliban to potentially, on a transactional basis, deal with the Taliban. And so I think that over time, especially the situation in Afghanistan gets more and more dire, there may be openings to allow this sort of very transactional approach to allow certain goods or services into Afghanistan. But it may be a while, and there may be some interesting sort of quid pro quos that Taliban tries to exert on that basis.
Well, just to be clear, my own view is that it would be a monumental mistake for us to recognize the Taliban, and I'm sympathetic to the idea that Ms. suggested that legislation to preclude that might make a lot of sense. Thank you.